In my last video, I discussed the NHL's salary cap and my view that it's an important tool to maintain league parity. I also discussed the comments of Alan Walsh, who argues that the salary cap is keeping down the earnings of the NHL's top players. And on that point, he's certainly correct. So I thought I'd take a look at some of the crazy pre-salary cap contracts the NHL saw, especially in the 1990s. In the 80s, NHL contracts were still, well, down to earth. In 87, Gretzky was the highest paid player in the league with a purported salary of just under $1 million. Of course, with inflation, that's a value today of $2.5 to $3 million, but still, for the great one, pretty reasonable. In the early 90s, we saw super elite players routinely paid between $1 to $3 million. In 1995 to 1996, Gretzky signed a new salary with a first-year value of $6.5 million, about $13 million today. And at this point, you can probably see that Alan Walsh may be onto something. The 90s were an expansionary period for the NHL. The league grew from 21 teams to 28, and behind southward expansion into the United States, the NHL reportedly tripled league revenue through the decade. In 1997, Mario Lemieux signed an $11.35 million contract. Then we got the Joe Sakic saga. Joe Sakic was offered by my New York Rangers a massive $21 million offer sheet, which included a $15 million signing bonus the Rangers thought Colorado would not be able to counter, and when Joe signed, it looked like he would be a Ranger. However, as those who have watched the Saving Sakic documentary know, and I won't spoil the details because it's quite a fun story, Colorado was able to match, meaning that Sakic had a $16.45 million salary in that first front-loaded year of the 3-year contract. And remember, this was 97-98, making that a $30 million contract essentially. What you do have to understand, though, is that many contracts of this era were front-loaded, so while Joe did get 16 or 17 million that first year, the second and third year saw him take home 2 million. But still, that year, alongside his longevity, puts him top 10 for adjusted earnings across all players. Who's number 1 for adjusted earnings? I'm glad you asked. Another massive earner who had his foot in both the salary cap and non-salary cap era was Jaromir Jagr. In 2001, Jagr was signed to the largest contract in NHL history at the time for $77 million over 7 years. That $11 million salary in 2001 comes out to almost $20 million today. Just a couple other fun contracts to bring up. Obviously, the funniest contract in NHL history is probably Ilya Kovalchuk. He signed a 17-year, $102 million contract. The NHL didn't like that. It would end up being 15 years, $100 million. I mean, not as crazy as the original deal, which would have had him playing through until 2027, and he would have still been on contract until next season, but he retired in 2013. Both Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby also signed massive long deals, but held up their end. Both are no longer allowed under the current CBA, but Crosby signed a 12-year contract worth $8.7 million a year. That puts him as the highest earning NHL player in history, not adjusted for inflation, while Ovi signed 13 years for $124 million. There are lots of other contracts worth discussing, whether Rick DiPietro or Shea Weber, but that's all I've got for today. Let me know what you thought of this video, and if there's more deep dives you'd like to see, let me know below. If you enjoyed today's video, please drop a like, and if you want more content, there's a new basketball, football, and hockey video on screen right now. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.